Centro di confinamiento del terrorismo. Of course, I practiced a lot to be able to say this correctly. A Spanish sentence that, if translated into English, would be Center of Terrorist Prisoners' Actions. They call it CECAT in short, which is a mega prison equivalent to 7 football fields in size. It has a capacity of 40,000 inmates. You might wonder how 40,000 people fit in this prison. Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, turned the world's most dangerous country into the safest country in Latin America. And he did it in a very short period. He managed to crack down on dangerous cartels and mafias in El Salvador and throw them into the prisons of El Salvador. These mafias and cartels are referred to as terrorists. Bukele ordered the construction of this prison to make it less hospitable for prisoners. Second, we're ready for operation a year ago, and it still holds about 13,000 inmates. The inmates here are not considered human beings. If you ask the guards there who they are, they'll say we have 2 types of beings. One is human and the other is a terrorist. We are now one of the most remote points in El Salvador, where a CECAT is built. Before we go inside the prison, we start from outside. If someone wants to get close to this prison, they have to pass through 7 checkpoints. These checkpoints start from 1 kilometer away from the prison until reaching the doorstep of the prison. Even if you are a journalist, you will be thoroughly examined at these checkpoints. You even have to take off your clothes to make sure you are not carrying anything. They thoroughly search your car too. Then you have to go to the next checkpoint. Each checkpoint becomes a bit simpler if the officer there determines that everything is in order. This 7-layered barrier to reaching this prison has prevented any corruption within the prison. Neither drugs nor mobile phones nor any other illegal items are allowed to enter. As the saying goes, one must pass through 7 filters to reach the prison door. Passing through its own specific stages is akin to boarding a plane, but with much stricter surveillance. Everything you carry must be placed in a basket and taken to a designated room. You must also pass through a metal detector to ensure you are not carrying any cold or hot weapons. Moreover, this entrance is specifically for journalists. Furthermore, it should be noted that there are no visitation in CECAT available, not even for defense attorneys of the inmates. If they are to speak with an inmate, they are taken to a room equipped with a television and a camera where they can communicate with their attorney. This method of contact is only for lawyers, meaning that once a prisoner enters the 3 doors, any communication with the outside world is cut off, even with their closest family members. Inside this prison, the most powerful blocking devices are installed, meaning no mobile phones or wireless devices work here. When officers communicate, they have their own special wireless system. So, prisoners truly have no connection to the outside world here. The steps we described were about a journalist entering the CECAT. But now how does a prisoner enter here? A prisoner must strip completely naked and then go through a machine, an X-ray, that even shows internal body parts, meaning anything inside their stomach is revealed. After the prisoners' everything is checked, they are given 1 set of clothes, a toothbrush, and a towel, and they are handcuffed, and the officer positions them so they can only see the floor, not around them. Officers who are in charge of the prison floor usually don't carry firearms. They only have items like batons. But it's not like they are defenseless in there. Armed officers patrol the area from above. The cells in this prison are different from all the prisons in the world. They are very large rooms where 100 inmates are housed in each. There are no enclosed toilets, showers, or bathrooms. First of all, the beds are bunk beds, and we don't have mattresses or pillows. We have to sleep on metal, and whoever wants puts the sheet and towel they have under their head. There is a toilet in this cell that has no walls. Everyone can see each other when they go to the bathroom, both the guards and the prisoners. They don't have showers. There is just a basin where they can go in and clean themselves. They come out with a towel given to them, dry themselves, and sit in their place. In El Salvador, there is execution, but only for war crimes, which doesn't include terrorists. So there is no execution for them. However, they give them sentences worse than execution. Most prisoners here have sentences of 1,000 years, but some, for example, those who haven't done anything, have sentences of up to 20 years, which are only about 1% of them. We must also mention that so far, no one has been released from this prison because it has only been operational for a year. Bright lights are installed in this prison that never go off. It's always as bright as daylight in there. The beds in the high-rise cells are directly hit by these floodlights, so they cover their eyes with towels and try to sleep. The constant illumination of the lights itself is torture in every sense. People living in such an environment are always agitated, and if there is any peace within them, it disappears. And worse, you don't know what time it is, what day it is, what time of day it is, or how long I've been in this prison. All of this makes the prisoner extremely anxious and angry. Despite being angry, they can't do anything about it. And this limitation only worsens their nerves. Each cell has a large window facing the main corridor, where a series of guards are always stationed, watching inside the cells. The ceiling of each cell is grated, and the guards walk on top of it, seeing the beautiful ground below. When you exit the building, there are sand traps all around, making a crunchy sound as you walk, audible from 50 meters away. No matter how quietly you try to walk, the sound is heard. Around the building, 3 layers of concrete and sturdy grates are built, with the final layer being 9 meters high, containing a 2-meter grate with electricity flowing through it. It means, in a way, we must know that escaping from this prison is impossible even if there's a corrupt officer inside who wants to help someone escape. They still can't. Every day, they separate 10 prisoners, handcuff them, and take them to the corridor for half an hour so they can move around. Then they bring them back and take another 10. The hall they take them to has natural light so they can see a bit of sunlight. The faces of all the officers serving in this prison are covered like this, and the face of the officer should never be seen, for the safety of the officer and their family, as a cartel might be able to identify them, especially when reporters come to film. You should know that before the Nayib Bukele, El Salvador was ruled by criminal cartels and mafia that terrify people. 99% of those officers are from those people, meaning they know what these beings were. When a prisoner wants to come out of their cell, they must always handcuff them before leaving. Then they come out, chain their feet, and connect their hands and feet together with chains. Sometimes they also connect several prisoners together and move them. The government of El Salvador says if you want to imagine what these people were like, you should know that, for example, these 20 people who are exercising have killed at least 200 people. Don't think of them as ordinary criminals. On the sports corridor, they unlock the handcuffs and ankle restraints so they can exercise. But guards are stationed all around, even with guns, monitoring them. Identifying which group the prisoners belong to is relatively easy. The most notorious of these groups has been the MS-13, of which this gentleman was a member. Different drug cartels usually are enemies, and there are cartels here too that are sworn enemies. But it seems like they throw them close to each other, especially. For example, in one cell, there are several sworn enemies who dare not even look at each other. They're not afraid of each other. They fear the guards who monitor them. Many reporters who go to prison start protesting and say, "What's going on? This is a violation of human rights. Why do you treat prisoners like this?" Prison officials like these kinds of reporters and invite them to see who they are. They bring the file of one of these prisoners and say, "Read it. Rape, kidnapping, murder, robbery, torture, drug trafficking, and anything else you can think of is in their file." Most of the time, reporters are convinced and understand that these individuals are criminals and offenders. We should be able to say that El Salvador was behind all of this before Bukele. and ordinary people had already put blood on their hands. That's why ordinary people don't support them. The people of El Salvador pray for Bishel so that after decades, we can breathe in this country. Now, if one of these prisoners protests, speaks out, gets into a fight with someone, or creates any other problem, they must go to the black hole. It's a dark cement room with only this light. And this is the toilet and shower. Depending on the mistake they made, they keep them there for several days to several weeks. When it's closed, there's no light here, and that hole up there is barely visible. They feed them 3 times a day, and this is their food. Boiled beans with a few barely noticeable pieces, or sour cream, which is considered Latin American food. Their breakfast, lunch, and dinner are the same. Once every 10 to 15 days, just to keep them from feeling bad, they give them a little rice or a bit of pasta. But there's absolutely no meat in their meals, neither chicken, fish, nor red meat. Food is served in plastic containers. Not that they come into a dining hall and sit somewhere to eat. They just put it behind the cell bars so they can reach out and grab it themselves. When they finish eating, they have to come to the sink to wash their dishes and put them back behind the bars until the guards come to take them away. They don't give any utensils with the food. It has to be eaten by hand. In most Latin American countries, for example, Brazil, if you visit their prisons, you'll see that criminals run their own show, and even the guards are somewhat afraid of them. But Boko has implemented a different system and managed to tame all these criminals. The government of El Salvador says this prison hasn't reached its full capacity yet. It has room for 40,000, while only 13,000 inmates are there. Just by saying this, the government of El Salvador ensures the security of the whole country. And if anyone thinks of committing a crime, they'll remember that this prison has plenty of space.
Ustedes desatan una ola de criminalidad y nosotros quitamos la comida en las cárceles.